James Jenkins here, independent candidate for the 31st Congressional District of Texas. I briefly want to talk about tariffs. What is a tariff? Tariff is a tax. It's a tax placed on goods that are imported into a country. So, when the administration tells you that they're placing a tariff on a particular product, what they're in fact doing is putting a tax on that product. How it works out is administration puts a tax on coffee, right? Everybody likes coffee. Puts a tax on coffee, or the tariff on coffee. Importers bringing in that coffee from wherever that is in the world that tariff applies incur that cost. Now, they're not going to absorb that cost. That is not capitalism. So they take the cost of those tariffs and they pass it on to you and I, the customers. So we absorb the cost of the tariff. Tariff is not paid for the country that is being tariffed. It's not paid for by the importers of that product. It's paid for by the consumers. What they don't tell you is the importers put a little extra on there because it's a business, not a service, and they want to get paid. All right, now tariffs, tax. Never forget those two things. The tariff is a tax. So let's talk about the Article 1 powers of the Congress in our U.S. Constitution. In short, Article 1 says Congress has the power of the purse. You hear it all the time. That means Congress can make and pass laws about tariffs or anything that generates revenues, buying and selling, any of that. That is all done by the Congress under their Article 1 powers put in the Constitution by the founders. All right, moving on. So, if those of you who have forgotten or may not remember, our President Donald Trump instituted a whole bunch of tariffs. He called it Liberation Day. And it was essentially tariffs across the entire planet and started a global trade war that didn't need to be started. When we talk about overlapping, which is not a thing, and the mixing of powers, what Donald Trump did was use his Article 2 powers and say, hey, I'm going to make these tariffs. And unfortunately, he got very little, if any, pushback from the Congress, who, again, has the power of the purse under their Article 1 powers. This is important for so many reasons because those of you who aren't keeping up, the Supreme Court was briefed on these tariffs back in November, this past November. That means it went to the district level federal court, an appellate level federal court. Both of those shot down Donald Trump's tariffs, and now it was argued in front of the Supreme Court. So, you may see in different news feeds, depending on where you get your information, who you talk to. The Supreme Court has not levied a decision yet. Now, if you ask me, it should have never gotten to that level. I say that because, again, we're talking about Article 1 power, the power of the purse, versus the president's Article 2 powers, the executive. Some people even said, oh, he's going to institute the Emergency Powers Act so he can put in place these tariffs. Okay, sure. Except there's no emergency, there's no reason for it, there's no justification for it, therefore, still wouldn't be a thing. Again, very little pushback from the Congress on this. However, going back to the Supreme Court of the United States, or SCOTUS, and in the oral argument that was conducted back on November 5th, they still haven't let a decision out. They still haven't said which way they're going to go with this. And it doesn't matter, and I say that because we, the people, are going to lose regardless. I'll explain. If the Supreme Court rules that the tariffs can stay in place, then we, the people, continue to pay the tax on these goods. And Donald Trump is allowed to just tariff whatever he wants because he thinks tariffs are a great thing. If the Supreme Court rules against him, in line with the district court and the appellate court, we have a problem. We, the people, have a problem. Because now Donald Trump has to pay that money back. And there are already lawsuits waiting in court for that decision because they want to be first in line to get their money back. What does that mean for us? What does that mean for we, the people? It means we're probably not going to see anything back. It's not going to filter its way back to us. Donald Trump promised rebate checks on tariffs. because we're making so much money. Well, if it's a rebate, it must be a tax because that's about the only way you can get money back from something like that. It has to be a tax. Um, Anybody seen a rebate check? Go ahead. I'll wait. Write in the comments. If you haven't seen a rebate check, you probably won't. Donald Trump has said he's brought in $18 trillion from these tariffs. Well, if that was true, that would be we, the people, have paid $18 trillion into these taxes that didn't go through Congress to supplement our government for some reason, unbeknownst to me, because we can't seem to afford Medicare, made cuts to Medicaid, took money from Veteran Services, VA, just so the one percenters and big corporations could get their tax break. Interesting. Wouldn't those tariff dollars, these 18 trillion that the president said they brought in, wouldn't that pay and fund a lot of these programs? The one percenters and the big corporations wouldn't necessarily need a tax break. I don't know. We'll leave in the comments. We'll talk about it. That being said, we the people have a serious problem. It doesn't matter which way the Supreme Court rules. We the people are still going to lose. Now, if the Supreme Court wants to get out of this, they'll just refer it back down to the district court where they've already made the ruling and they'll stay out of it to save face. It's an option. We'll see. But this was briefed in November, and I get it. Sometimes decisions take time to write up, dissents, concurrences, a little horse trading, I guess, amongst the justices. I don't know. What I do know is there's no silver lining here. Tariffs are not a tax on a country. Tariffs are a tax on the goods, and only the Congress, under their Article 1 powers, levy taxes against the American people. So I don't know why the Supreme Court decided to hear this. We'll all wait for the decision to be made. But I'm telling you right now, either the tariffs stay in place and we pay it, or the tariffs get repealed and Donald Trump has to pay back the money, which we, the people, pay that money back out of tariff money they've already collected from us. Something to think about. So I'd like to leave you with a video from former President, rest his soul, Ronald Reagan, and his thoughts on tariffs. You may have already seen this video. Some of you may remember this video, but give it a watch and think about what Ronald Reagan's thoughts are on tariffs and how to use them. Can't be a good person. Just try not to be a problem for anybody else. Have a good one.